Good morning and a very warm welcome to Africa. Good morning, happy Friday, and thank you very much for joining us. Now we are broadcasting the news making headlines across Africa. My name is Aina Koyo alongside Diana Master.
Good morning, Aina, and good morning to you, Africa. Now, it just so happens that today is World Bicycle Day. And of course, with escalating fuel prices, I'm pretty sure more and more people would be riding their bicycles to work. Now, in April 2018, the United Nations General Assembly declared June 3rd as International World Bicycle Day. The resolution for World Bicycle Day recognizes the uniqueness, longevity, and versatility of the bicycle, which has been in use for 2 centuries, and that is a simple, affordable, reliable, clean, and environmentally fit, sustainable means of transport. Here's a video on World Bicycle Day.
You're watching Africa Good Morning right here on NTV. Now let's get into our top stories. Hundreds demonstrate against the UN in Sudan. Hundreds of Sudanese protesters rallied Wednesday in front of the United Nations mission in the capital Khartoum to call for its dismissal. The protesters include supporters of Islamist groups critical of efforts by UN envoy Volker Perthes to resolve the political crisis in the country since last year's military coup. The rallies came as the UN Secretary Council is considering extending the mission's mandate beyond the 3rd of June. Many accuse the envoy of interfering in Sudan's internal affairs. The UN mission, along with the African Union and regional bloc, have been pushing to facilitate Sudanese-led talks to resolve the crisis.
Now, world's most neglected refugee crises, all in Africa. 10 most neglected displacement crises are for the first time all in Africa, the Norwegian Refugee Council says in a report on Wednesday, expressing concern over the consequences of the war in Ukraine on the continent. The NRC publishes an annual list of the 10 most neglected displacement crises based on 3 criteria: the international community's lack of political will to find solutions, lack of media coverage, and funding for humanitarian needs. While a large proportion of African countries are usually included, 2021 is the first year that all 10 are in Africa, according to the report. The countries with the most neglected crises, according to the NRC, are in order: the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, South Sudan, Chad, Mali, Sudan, Nigeria, Burundi, and Ethiopia. Like the previous year, the DRC, a textbook case of neglect appearing in this list for the 6th time in a row, underlines the NRC comes first with 5.5 million displaced people, particularly in the northeast of the country. Hunger is on the rise in most of these countries, due in particular to the worsening of their food situation by the increase in the prices of wheat and fuel caused by the war in Ukraine, warns the NRC.
In our next story, Red Berets warns Ramaphosa and London to pay Marikana workers. The African freedom fighters warned President Cyril Ramaphosa, the government, and Sibanye Stillwater Mines to pay the Marikana workers. If they fail to comply before the end of June 2022, the EFF will announce a plan of action ahead of the 10th anniversary of Marikana massacre in August. Now, the Red Berets said they will be joining the Marikana workers on Thursday in their picket outside the Johannesburg High Court, where they will be attending the civil case for damages against Ramaphosa in his personal capacity and Sibanye. The case was postponed last year when it emerged that then presiding officer Judge Colin Lamont held shares worth about 225,000 rand in Sibanye Stillwater, which he had bought at Sibanye, formerly known as Lon Min.
Now, an update on the Nigeria stampede. A church still looking for relatives of the victims. A church in Nigeria's southern city of Port Harcourt is still trying to trace relatives of some of the victims of Saturday's stampede that killed 31 people. The tragedy occurred when a crowd reportedly rushed to receive food and other gift items being given away to the poor, resulting in a stampede. One of the youngest victims of the deadly stampede was 5-year-old Delight Eke. His parents took him and his two younger siblings to the charity event, but he didn't make it out alive. Many of those who died in the crash were women and children. The police are still investigating the incident. The church has put out a statement saying it is working to identify relatives of the victims, some of whom have been waiting outside the church for news.
In our next story, OPEC Plus agrees on bigger oil output hikes for coming months. OPEC Plus will increase the size of its oil supply hikes by about 50%, bowing to months of pressure from major consumers, including the U.S., to help ease the pain of high energy prices. Ministers agreed on Thursday that the group should add 648,000 barrels a day of oil to the market in July and August, up from 432,000 barrels a day in recent months, delegates said, asking not to be named because the discussions were private. The increase would be divided proportionally between members in the usual way, delegates said. Countries that have been unable to raise production, such as Angola, Nigeria, and mostly recently Russia, would still be allocated a higher quota. That could mean that the actual supply boosts are smaller than the official figure, as they often have been the case in recent months. Oil paired losses in New York trading 0.9% lower at 114 a barrel as of 9 a.m. local time. After the break, we return with more news right here on Africa Good Morning. Stay with us.
You're still watching Africa Good Morning, and now getting into the second half of our top stories. Monkeypox has likely spread undetected for some time. The World Health Organization has said that hundreds of monkeypox cases have surfaced beyond the African countries where the disease is typically found, warning that the virus has likely been spreading under the radar. Since the United Kingdom first reported a confirmed monkeypox case on 7 May, more than 550 confirmed cases of the disease have been verified in 30 countries outside of the West and Central African nations where it is endemic, the WHO said. The United Nations Health Agency's top monkeypox expert, Rosamund Lewis, said that the appearance of so many cases across much of Europe and other countries where it has not been seen before is clearly a cause for concern, and it does suggest undetected transmission for a while. Monkeypox is related to smallpox, which killed millions around the world every year before it was eradicated in 1980. But monkeypox, which spreads through close contact, is much less severe, with symptoms symptoms typically including a high fever and a blistery chicken pox-like rash that clears up after a few weeks. Meanwhile, the WHO's Emergencies Director Mike Ryan warned on Wednesday that outbreaks of endemic diseases including monkeypox and Lassa fever are becoming more persistent and frequent.
Kenya marks 59 years of self-rule. Thousands and hundreds gathered at the Uhuru Gardens of Nairobi to mark Madakara Day. It is before a large crowd, dignitaries such as the first couple of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the Diplomatic Corps, VP William Ruto, and politician Raila Odinga, that the president addressed the nation. Madaraka Day is significant in our history because it is on this day in June 1963 that our founding father of our nation replaced the outgoing colonial government and formed the first indigenous government of Kenya. If Uhuru Kenyatta presided over the Kenya Defence Force parade in Nairobi, celebration resumed this year in all counties. For the last ceremony in office, Kenyatta invited his people to consider stability when voting for the next elections.
Now moving over into our next story, stop eating bushmeat to prevent monkeypox outbreak. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has warned Nigerians against eating bushmeat and interacting with rodents to prevent spreading of the monkeypox virus. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development made this warning in a statement issued to the Punch Healthwise on the 1st of June 2022. The statement was signed by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. Dr. Mohammed Abubakar said that the ministry is much concerned about the outbreak of the monkeypox virus in the country and it is doing everything possible to prevent it. Mohammed Abubakar said that the Ministry of Agriculture is collaborating with other relevant agencies in order to bring the situation under control. The ministry also urged Nigerians to avoid contact with persons believed to be infected with monkeypox, even at homes and in workplaces. This is as the ministry ordered hunters and dealers of bushmeat to desist from such practice in order to prevent any possibility of monkeypox outbreak in the country.
In our next story, Nigerian biker rides from London to Lagos against polio. Kuntle Adeyanju left London on the April 19 with a simple goal in mind: reach Lagos and raise funds to support the fight against polio. On Sunday, 13 countries and 13,000 kilometers later, Nigerian-born Kuntle Adeyanju crossed the Benin-Nigeria border after a 41-day journey on his motorcycle. At the Semin Craig border, post entering Nigeria from Benin, Adeyanju received yet a new stamp on his passport prove the 13 countries he crossed. The funds generated from his adventure will go to charity, with 20% dedicated to the End of Polio Now campaign. The rider has been documenting his adventures online and became a sensation. Polio, a highly infectious viral disease, essentially affects children. If Africa was declared free of wild polio virus in 2020, countries continue to conduct immunization programs. Last March, Malawi and Mozambique declared a polio outbreak linked to strains from Pakistan.
That is it for our top stories. Now, after the break, we're going to be talking cakes as we visit Bella's Cake Studio. Stay tuned.
This is Africa Good Morning. Let's talk about some mouth-watering stuff. 6 years ago, Bella's Cake Studio came into life. Although challenging, owner Isabella Dallas says she is determined to continue growing her business. Situated in Oshakati, her shop sells ready-made cake, cake jars and other sweets treats. She also gives mentorship and baking classes on a daily basis. Here is a report by Tunohole Mungoba.
Hi, good morning. How are you? My name is Elizabeth Dalla and I go by the name Isabella Dalla. And I'm the owner of Bella's Cake Studio. I started this establishment 6 years back, running it from home. But for 2 years now, we are situated at Medusalem Complex, right here in the heart of Oshakati, next to the bridge. Yes. Okay. I'm an Angolan citizen, or let me say, okay, I was born here, but my parents were from the other side of the borders. So growing up, it's a must for every girl child to know how to bake. Well, basically, curiosity got me where I am today. My mother would be, up until today, she's still the best baker. Up until today, she would teach us how to bake, teach us a funny few things that all Angolan ladies are supposed to know from home. But yeah, curiosity is what got Bella's Cake Studio this far. We do mentorship, we give classes on a daily basis, and we don't have these monthly things. No, they're usually for 3 or 4 days and then the classes are done. We have broken them down into that so that everybody in any type of capacity or mindset is able to come in and it would help. So we have everyday cake jars, we have everyday cake slices, we have everyday birthday cakes, we have emergency wedding cakes. Yeah, that is it. They love the cake jars. Unfortunately, I try and bring in everything new and stuff, but my people are just my people and they just stick to the cake jars. I would not call it competition because ShopRite is way above me, and the other like Spars, Pick and Pay, all the other companies which have everyday cakes in their shop, they run them on, let me say, around about $50 to $60, while our prices start from $280. So it's really a hassle getting people to opt for a home-baked cake rather going to a big establishment for that. So it's an everyday hustle. The compliments. I love compliments. I love when people speak only good things. I don't like anybody speaking bad things about me, but I love it when people talk about me. Literally, day in, day out, I can hear about people talk about me throughout the whole day. I love compliments. I love when my products go out there and they make people happy. And I love it when I go deliver and I could literally see the surprise on people's faces. Most of the time I love to go do the surprise deliveries on my own. Priceless moments.
Remember, it is people that propel social progress, develop science and technology, and through their hard work continuously transform the human environment. We are both creature and molder of our environment. These words are spoken directly from the 1972 Declaration on the Human Environment, which was adopted by the UN Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm, 16 June 1972. On 2 and 3 June 2022, another crucial international environmental meeting will be held in Stockholm, Sweden. Stockholm Plus 50 commemorates the 1972 conference and celebrates 50 years of global environment actions. Let's take a look.
We are both creature and molder of our environment.
The crisis of human environment is a global crisis.
Our capability to transform our surroundings, if used wisely, can bring to all peoples the benefits of development and enhance quality of life. But through ignorance or indifference, we can do massive and irreversible harm to the environment on which our life and well-being depend. We see around us growing evidence of harm. Dangerous levels of pollution in water, air, earth, and living beings. Major disturbances to ecological balance, distraction and depletion of irreplaceable resources. Millions continue to live below the minimum levels required for a decent human existence. A point has been reached in history when we must shape our actions with more care for their environmental consequences. To defend and improve the human environment has become an imperative for us all, a goal to be pursued in harmony with the fundamental goals of peace, economic, and social development. To achieve this will demand responsibility by citizens and communities, enterprises and institutions at every level in common effort.
It is so decided.
Remember, it is people that propel social progress, develop science and technology, and through their hard work, continuously transform the human environment. We are both creature and molder of our environment.
Now, Anna, I bet you're wondering how cold it's going to get today. Don't worry, after the break, we'll be back with today's weather predictions.
Ohole So Nice is an entertainment show brought to you by the youth for the youth. This is a dating show that allows individuals to participate and be their own true selves. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
When it comes to health, there's always thousands of questions to ask. Now, if you are wondering, what are the new vaccines in the pipeline? What are the challenges of turning vaccines into vaccinations? What timelines can we expect for future vaccine? Dr. Catherine O'Brien from WHO has all these answers right here in Science in 5.
We are talking about vaccines today. What are the vaccines in the pipeline? Are they going to be fast-tracked like we saw with the COVID-19 vaccines? And how are we going to turn these life-saving vaccines into vaccinations? Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. Our expert today is Dr. Catherine O'Brien. Welcome, Kate. Let's start with the vaccines that are in the pipeline.
That's such a great question, Vismita. We've seen the rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines over the past 2 years, and there is a whole pipeline of products that are coming through that aren't against other germs other than COVID-19. They really fall into two categories. The first is vaccines for germs that we don't have vaccines for, and the primary ones that we're pursuing in that group are vaccines against RSV. That's a virus that is one of the most common causes of serious lung disease in young children and infants. It comes through in waves on an annual basis in pretty much every country around the world. Another of the new vaccines that we don't have a product yet for is Group B strep. That's a germ, a bacteria that causes very serious infections in young infants and leads to death in young infants. And so this is obviously an important target to prevent meningitis in infants and protect the lives of newborns. We also have vaccines that are still being pursued against viruses for which we don't have a vaccine, HIV in particular. Then there's the other category of vaccines, ones that we already have, but we're pursuing improved vaccines. And in that category, we're looking very seriously at tuberculosis vaccines, second-generation tuberculosis vaccines. In that category are also improved influenza vaccines, and of course, second-generation COVID vaccines are also in development.
Kate, with COVID-19 vaccines, we saw a fast-tracked process. Can we expect the same with these upcoming vaccines?
Well, COVID-19 was very special, and it was, you've probably all heard this term, unprecedented. We keep calling the development of COVID-19 vaccines unprecedented. And the reason that we shouldn't necessarily expect that the pace of vaccine development will go as quickly as it did are for several reasons. First of all, the whole world was turned on to the pursuit of developing COVID-19 vaccines. There was a complete coordination and collaboration, and practically every laboratory and scientist that worked on vaccine development, both in companies that manufacture vaccines and in academics and other research institutes, were pursuing COVID vaccines. So that's not the way it normally works for vaccine development. The second reason is that the amount of funding that goes into vaccine development was enormous and unprecedented for COVID vaccines. And the third reason that these were so fast and so successful was that there was an infrastructure for clinical trials around the world that was used and turned over to COVID-19 vaccine development. So it was really that there was this one target that everybody was pursuing. So for these other vaccines, we wouldn't expect that they would go nearly as quickly. However, I think because of all the different ways that clinical development of vaccines happened during COVID-19, people are really learning the lessons from that and looking at the steps that can be shortened or run in parallel so that we can actually shorten the amount of time and the amount of effort and investment it takes to bring some of these life-saving vaccines actually to availability.
Kate, we know that governments around the world are working hard to provide access to these vaccines. Speak to us about how these upcoming vaccines will be turned into vaccination.
You know, it's commonly said that vaccines don't save lives, vaccinations save lives. And so a vaccine is really of no benefit if it sits on the shelf and doesn't actually get deployed. Now, there are lots of reasons why vaccinations don't happen, even though vaccines are available. Some of the reasons why is simply the convenience of the services. They're not at the time or the place or the distance where it's easy for really busy people, especially busy mothers, to take their kids or their adolescent teenagers to get vaccination. It's also a problem for older adults. Now, another reason why vaccines don't turn into vaccinations, we've heard a lot about vaccine hesitancy or people who are opposed to vaccination. And I want to really debunk a myth that somehow this is a big group of people. In fact, people who are opposed to vaccination is a very small fraction of people who don't get vaccinated. And usually they're operating under some misinformation that's been shared with them. But there is another group of people who are hesitant about vaccines. They may have questions about how safe do we know that vaccines are, and what is the way that vaccines work. Again, a lot of misinformation among people about exactly what vaccines do when you receive a vaccine. And I want to just reinforce that vaccines stimulate your own immune system, your body's natural immune system, to develop protections against the germ that is actually being vaccinated against, so that when you may be exposed to that germ in the future, in a real life setting, your body already has defenses to protect against it.
Thank you, Kate. If you have any questions about vaccines, please visit our website. Remember, vaccines save lives. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Now, South Africa's largest asset manager suspends its operating executive. More on this and other economic news, as well as economic indicators, coming up right after the break.
Africa Good Morning is a current affairs program that brings you the latest from Southern Africa and beyond. News, economics, sport, weather, interviews, and so much more. For any advertising or news-related queries, contact agm@synergy.com.na. Africa Good Morning, bringing Africa to you.
Happy Friday. Let's get into our economic news. South Africa's largest manager suspended its operating executive. The Public Investment Corporation has informed its clients that its chief operating officer, Vuyani Hako, has been placed on precautionary suspensions. Allegations of alleged misconduct were made against Master Hako, it said in a statement on Thursday, 2nd of June, with a 2.3 trillion rand in assets under management. The PIC's biggest client is the Government Employees Pension Fund, the manager of the pension of South African government workers. The GEPF is the largest pension fund in Africa with assets in excess of 2.1 trillion rand. The PIC said it believes that the suspension is in the best interest of both the employee and the employer to ensure that an independent inquiry can be proceeded.
Now moving over, sanctions will break Russia's economy in the end, Germany says. Russia's economy has been dealt a severe blow by international sanctions imposed following the invasion of Ukraine, and that damage will become increasingly clear, according to Germany's Vice Chancellor. The revenue Russia receives from commodities like oil and gas is painful, Robert Habeck, who is also the economy minister, said Thursday in a speech to Parliament. But that doesn't accurately reflect the pressure President Vladimir Putin nation is under because the country can barely spend any of it, he said. Habak said that a shortage of software security updates for aircraft will soon lead to planes being grounded, while a lack of high-tech equipment will lead to production processes being destroyed. Even with Germany and other countries halting or phasing out Russian energy imports, Moscow's oil and gas revenue will be about $285 billion this year, up by more than a fifth compared to 2021, according to estimates from Bloomberg Economics based on economy ministry projections. Including other commodities, it more than makes up for the $300 billion in foreign reserves frozen by sanctions. With the war in Ukraine now into a fourth month, there's little evidence that sanctions are forcing Putin to abandon his military campaign.
South Africa is looking at building new airports with a Gotv connection in major cities. The Department of Transport will give increased attention to the country's airports in the coming years and how they fit into the broader economy. This includes a proposal to broaden existing international airports into larger airports while investigating the need for smaller, less profitable airports. The proposals are included in a revised white paper published by the department at the end of May. Some of the key changes include international airports in metropolitan areas should ideally be linked with a schedule or similar rapid transit system or even a medium-speed local or regional rail system, the department said. This is similar to how the Gautrain connects to OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg. Public sector investment in the aviation industry will be related to not only market returns but also to broader socio-economic value when making decisions around the development of new or the upgrading and extension of existing airports, the department said. The environmental impact and sustainability of airports should be tracked and managed, especially the fact that overall network planning does not take into account minimizing environmental impacts, the department said. The department added that all stakeholders will be consulted in the planning of airports.
Staying with South Africa, Eskom failures boost solar sales. Eskom's failures have had a positive consequence. People are increasingly investing in environmentally friendly solar systems to generate their own electricity. More houses are sporting solar panels on their roofs, and technicians seem to be working on new installations in every suburb. Preparing for power cuts starts with buying a few lights. Hardware stores and most supermarkets stock rechargeable light bulbs. These bulbs simply replace the normal bulb in light fittings and use a small built-in battery when there's no electricity. Strip lighting under kitchen cupboards works well too, connected to a battery similar to those found in alarm systems and gate and garage door openers. It is becoming normal practice to include a solar geyser and a solar system for generating electricity when building a new house. This is all good news for the environment, as it results in less dependence on Eskom and its dirty coal power plants and expensive diesel generators. However, it is bad news for Eskom's finances as well as the finances of local municipalities. It is the best paying customers who can afford to invest in solar systems. They are probably the same people who would have bought Eskom bonds if they hadn't had to invest the 150,000 or 200,000 rand in their own electricity systems.
All right, let's have a look at our economic indicators. Stay tuned for sports with Ari Gougad after the break.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news, and starting off with soccer news today. And it was a big game for Ukraine, still trying to qualify for the 2022 World Cup soccer tournament in Qatar. It was a qualifying game that they had to play against Scotland, and they beat Scotland by 3-1. Quite a significant performance by them, and that game was played in Glasgow. They're not in the World Cup yet. They now have a game on Sunday that they will play against Wales. So it's Ukraine that will play against Wales. The winner of that game will go through to the finals, to the 2022 World Cup finals in Qatar. It was quite a significant game for Ukraine after all the country's been through and the soccer players have been through with the Russian invasion into Ukraine, and it was described as an encouraging evening, also top quality performance and also quite emotional. So it was a 3-1 win for Ukraine, and all to play for on Sunday. To continue with international sports news, some tennis news. Roland Garros, it's almost done. It's a finals weekend that's coming up. Saturday it will be the women's final and Sunday the men's final. News from the tournament: in the men's draw, that is the semi-finals, will be played on Friday. In the one semi-final, it will be Kasper Ruud that will play against Marin Cilic. He's from Croatia. And in the quarterfinals, it was Kasper Ruud of Norway that beat Holger Rune of Denmark in 4 sets. And Cilic from Croatia, he came up against Andrei Rublev. It was a tight game, a very difficult game. It went to 5 sets, and it was 7-6 a tiebreak in the fifth set for Cilic to go through to the semi-final. Other semi-final on Friday will be Rafael Nadal trying to become a champion for the 21st time in majors, and he will play against Alexander Zverev. The women's side of the draw, it is number 1 seed Iga Swiatek that is still the favorite. Seeds number 2 up to seeds number 17 all out of the tournament. The highest seed beside Iga Swiatek is the number 18 seed, that is Coco Gauff, and she's playing in the other semi-final. So Iga Swiatek, she plays in the one semi-final against Daria Kasatsina. She is the 20th seed, and then Coco Gauff, the 18th seed, she will come up against Italy's Martina Trevisan, and that is the semi-finals in the women's draw. Now we continue with golf news on international sports news, and it is the LIV, the Golf Invitational, the controversial LIV Invitational of Greg Norman, the Saudi-backed tournament that is going to be played next week in England, the first of 8 tournaments. And news from the organizers are that there's been a field of 42 that's been announced that will play in the tournament. There's still 6 more players that needs to be confirmed to play in the field of 48. And some of the high-profile players that confirmed is Dustin Johnson. That was quite a surprise. He's a very highly ranked player playing on the US PGA Tour. Dustin Johnson confirmed that he will play, and also Sergio Garcia. The two of them, the only major winners that confirmed that they will play in the tournament next week. Lots of South Africans that will play in the tournament, and that as predicted, or there were suggestions that Louis Oosthuizen will be one of the players. He did confirm that he will play in this LIV Golf Invitational. So it's Louis Oosthuizen, Charles Swartzel, and also Brendan Grace, the 3 top South African golfers that will play in the LIV Golf Invitational. The PGA in the United States said the PGA Tour will sanction players that will compete next week, so it's not sure what the sanction will be. So the same will apply for the players on the European Tour. Now, to finish today's international sports news, some rugby news, and good news for South African teams, that they will play in competitions. 5 South African teams will play in competitions next year that is in the United Kingdom in knockout tournaments. So the 3 South African teams have qualified for the Champions Cup. That is by way of their performance in United Champions League. That is the Stormers, the Sharks, and the Bulls. They will play in the Champions Cup next year. There's also a Challenge Cup, and the Lions will play in the Challenge Cup, and also the Cheetahs have been invited as the 5th team to also play in the Challenge Cup. So that's good news for the Cheetahs, who didn't compete this year in any international competition. So that's the international sports news for now. Hope you have a great sporting day, and we talk again tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.
Well, after the break, we look at the highlights just in case you missed anything.
8,357 trees planted.
19 million liters of kerosene divested from the economy.
Only one Earth.
$3.5 billion in weatherization and climate change resiliency.
180 acres of land regeneratively grazed.
Only one Earth.
28,000 orders in returnable, reusable containers, 100,000 pieces of single-use packaging diverted from landfill, only one Earth.
3,600 plastic bags.
177,000 kilograms of plastic waste recovered.
Only one Earth.
Over 100,000 people inspired by music activism.
50 eco-raps.
For hashtag Only One Earth.
One green school. 24 children recycling for life. Only one Earth.
We can prevent violence against women before it happens. It means tackling the root causes of violence, working with men and boys to end power over women, which is often normalized and justified. Transforming these root causes and preventing violence needs political commitment and leadership, laws and policies that promote gender equality, investments in women's organizations, and resources for prevention work. But prevention also starts with you. You can start by educating yourself. Speak out when you get a chance, advocate for survivors' rights, and always listen to survivors. Preventing violence against women and girls before it actually happens is the most effective way of ending it. So let's start now.
NMH Ad Spotter spots the daily NMH printed editions for the daily newspapers to the retail specials, as well as weekly, monthly, and yearly focus editions. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, please contact adspotter@synergy.com.na. NMH Ad Spotter. Spot it, like it, buy it.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toyvon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts, and experts. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact agenda@synergy.com.na. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Sadly, we've reached the end of our show, but before we sign off, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast, just in case you missed them. Hundreds demonstrate against the UN in Sudan. World's most neglected refugee crises, all in Africa. Red Berets warn Ramaphosa and Lonmin to pay Marikana workers. Nigeria stampede, church still looking for relatives of the victims. South Africa's largest asset manager suspends its operating executive.
All right, those have been our stories. We thank you very, very much for joining Africa Good Morning today. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can always post those lovely comments on our Facebook and Twitter pages. That is at Africa Good Morning. We absolutely love hearing from you. We also have a website. It's called One Up To, and there you can find more content that you will definitely enjoy. Africa Good Morning plays on DSTV channel 285 as well as Gotv channel 94 every weekday from 7 to 8. And we also have other shows, beautiful shows such as Ohole So Nice, Animated One, Sunset News, and much, much more. You absolutely have to tune in. From all of us right here in studio is all our love, all our light.